Howdy, this is Steve Allen on the NBC Radio Network.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Steve Allen.
Hello, Hollywood? No, I mean hello, America. I'm coming to you from Hollywood. Or hello, Hollywood, I'm coming to you from America. I don't know where I'm coming from or who you are or what you are, but hello anyway.
Well,
Did I make myself clear?
Very clear. We have a fella on the phone who is, this week we're being heard in Cincinnati for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And
for the first time for this series, of course. I've been heard in Cincinnati many times.
Well, I mean, this particular program. So,
including once when I went there and raised my voice. But go ahead.
For the very first time, we can now say, Cincinnati, Ohio, hello.
Hello. Hello, Steve.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
Hi, that's Bill, and I just wanted to welcome you into the Cincinnati marketplace here. We get you on WCKY here.
Wonderful.
Okay? This is the home of Sawyer Point in the home of the Flying Pigs.
The what?
You haven't seen it on the national press, I guess, yet, but we're going to have a statue here celebrating our early history and our bicentennial year of flying pigs because of Porkopolis in our history. I wanted to and you're fond of useless information there by doing that.
Would you enlarge upon that? When you say flying pigs, what are you talking about?
Yeah, two pigs are supposed to be coming out of a simulated set of steamboat smokestacks right on our riverfront here in Cincinnati. Very exciting, very exciting.
No reason, just for the heck of it.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why would two nice little pigs do something like that? I'm serious.
I think it has something to do with the artist who's designing the sculpture and part of our history, but it's already been okayed by city council and everything. Very exciting.
Okay. Well, far be it from me to hamper their plans.
I guess the artist went hog wild.
That was the voice of one of America's funniest gentlemen, Mr. Jack Carty. Hi, Jack Carty.
Jack Carty. That's all right. Your secretary said Carson. I said he's dead. No, he'll be back.
Jack Carter.
I hate that name. Carver I use now. Carver, because no one says Carter.
Really?
And I've been in Cincinnati many times. Tell us about it. All right, I will. Actually, where we worked was across the river in Kentucky.
Yes.
In Covington, which is the gateway to Cincinnati.
If our caller from Cincinnati is with us here, where is the transmitter for the station located?
WCKY?
Yeah, WCKY, transmitter is right downtown, beautiful downtown Cincinnati, right across from Covington and Newport, Kentucky also.
Because those letters CKY sound like the end of Kentucky. Is there any...
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, Cincinnati, Kentucky, CKY.
Yeah.
But... can someone explain that to us? So never mind the stuff that I don't know about flying pigs. What about CKY, Kentucky?
Can I explain that to you? Nah,
certainly.
I can't explain it. Take a better head than mine. David will explain it to you. I don't have the answer. It's an old set of call letters, though. It's been around here. This station has been around for years and years.
That's true. But as a radical thinker, I go to the root of things.
Okay.
Hang people up.
KY is definitely CKY. Not KRP either.
All right. And your name for the record?
It's Bill. I'm not supposed to get my last one.
Okay, well then this is just Steve. Bill.
Okay, Steve.
And you now have a certificate that testifies that you were our first Cincinnati caller.
Policeman.
And we're
You should get the order of the flying pig, at least.
That's it, Jack. I've listened and watched you on TV for many, many years, and thank you very much. I mean, I'm happy to hear you and talk to you.
Well, thank you so much, Bill. It's a delight to know you're out there.
Okay, we'll keep listening in Cincinnati.
All right, thanks so much. Now, Jack Carter showed up today with his wits about him, and it was nip and tuck there for a moment because he has a noticeable bump on his forehead. How'd that happen, Jack?
Yeah, as we said with kids, I got a bile on my head. Great.
Now, what is that?
I opened a door right into my head.
Why?
One of those tennis gate doors, and it had that latch hanging down. I didn't see that.
Ooh.
And I opened it right into me, and I went... and it stuck. It stayed there.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, the gate stayed in my head for a while.
Wow.
I thought it'd be gushing blood. Luckily, just a little lump. But it's bigger than my head now, isn't it? You believe the size of that?
It's bigger than a bread box.
Well, I rushed over here, and I got I was so thrilled to get a cabbie I could understand and talk to.
An English guy?
Well, he was Russian.
No kidding.
Yeah, usually they're Vietnamese, when you get in a cab and you look at the license and I'm always interested to find, it would be Yu Min Chin or Thwet Wok Thwok. Or it would,
Wingtip Shoe.
Yeah, Wingtip Shoe or Chen Wan Lo or else you get a lot of Indians today.
Yes.
And that name runs right off their license plate. Maharajni Shwashtara Halnangang Bung. It goes outside the cab and down the door. Punjab Dangal Hawan Mas.
And it goes right up Sepulveda Boulevard if you
and
ever
that's
check.
his first name. So today I got Vladimir, a cute little Vladimir Kozlozlozny.
And he spoke English, obviously.
Yes, where to Chepolvita? He said, Cheplovita. I go, good. You want to go freeway?
Did he sound anything like Yakov Smirnov?
When I mentioned that name, he got irate, which
Really?
is a town outside of Ireland. He said, oh, that's not his best joke he don't do. He says, in Russia, you can make speech and you're still free.
Mm-hmm.
No, here you're still free. After speech in Russia, then you're not free.
Ah.
That's free speech.
That's
I gave
funny.
him that good one, though, about years ago. Kissinger was talking to a Russian.
Mm-hmm.
Can I use one colloquialism here?
Well,
one
there are-
profanism. That's a cute one.
What's the first letter?
B. Son of a.
Well, now we know what it is. Just go son of a...
I don't think it'll work. It's a great story, and when I heard Yakov Smirnov do it, I said, this kid must have been listening to us a long time, because I did the joke for years.
Say son of a B.
Well, Kissinger is talking to a Russian. He says, well, why are you complaining about everything in America? Of course, in America, you got no culture. In Russia, we have Moiseyev, we have Bolshoi. What you got in America? You got hippies, dippies, drugs, crazy, nothing. Yeah, but here Kissinger says we have free speech. That means any American. Tomorrow I can go to the White House. I can walk up to Mr. Nixon and say, Mr. Nixon, you're a son of a B.
Mm-hmm.
And the Russian says, we got same thing in Russia. If I want tomorrow, I'll go to the Kremlin. I walk up to Gorbachev and I say, Gorbachev, Nixon's a son of a B. You know that joke?
Yeah, great joke.
I couldn't remember who was before Gorbachev, Khrushchev.
Ah, right.
Because I went into a Kissingerism. Anyhow, this Russian was adorable. I said, I'm doing Steve Wallen. Oh, Steve Wallen. Who's that? You know, everyone
right.
I said, Encino has big stars. I passed Valley Meadow, Royal. I said,
Yeah.
well, Steve Allen lives here. Again, Steve Allen. Give me big names. Any movie stars. I know MGM. You know, Mayor only. He was a Russian Jew.
Ah.
So I could never figure out if he was just regular Russian, Polish Russian, Jewish Russian. I don't know. He
That's
was,
funny. You know, when people in many parts of the world talk about American movie stars, they even now, in the 1980s, tend to talk about the stars of the 30s or 40s. When Jane and I were in China a few years ago, we spent a day at a Chinese film studio, the equivalent of our Paramount or MGM.
yeah.
And after about 2 hours of formalities and lunch and political speeches, then we kind of broke into little groups and got to talk to each other as human beings, which
Yeah,
is thrilling. And they said, is John Barrymore still alive? And we said, oh, no. And they said, what about... And everybody they mentioned was dead.
Yeah.
It was strange. You know?
Well, he says, we see many movies in Russia. He said, I love it. Was MGM biggest, though. I know it was Russian Jew, man, created the studio. Great movies like Great Waltz. Then he mentioned and Sun Valley Serenade. I said, no, that was Fox or Paramount, because that was Sonia Henney, John
think that was
Wayne.
Fox,
Because
yeah.
Burl was in that.
That's right.
So I said, all these years I got the wrong studio.
That's funny. Interesting that Sun Valley Serenade, which was not a great movie, but which parenthetically they're trying to make into a Broadway musical now.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
It'll make a better musical than it did a
Hey,
movie.
good
I think.
songs in it, though. Good
Yeah, well, they're going to
songs.
use the original Glenn Miller classics
Yeah.
in the score, which is a marvelous
Burl
idea.
was in it, John Payne and Cesar Romero. I think.
That's right, and Sonia Hyney.
Hyney, yes.
Yes.
Sonia Hyney. Sonia Hyney's Hyney. Alfred Hitchcock's car.
Yeah.
We have to stop for just a moment.
All
Why?
right. After which we will ask Jack his views on the Jimmy the Greek faux pas.
Uh-oh.
Oh, why me? Why get me fired from what?
No, I mean, it's a free country.
Jack
as we
Carter.
were just saying.
Jack Carter is our guest, and we'll continue in a moment with the Steve Allen Show on the NBC Radio Network.
Howdy, this is Steve Allen. Stay tuned because there's a lot more to come here on the Steve Allen Show on the NBC Radio Network.
You're listening to the Steve Allen Show. Jack Carter is our guest. Herb Sargent is with us. This is Mark Simone, and here again is Steve Allen.
You caught me in mid-mouthful, Mark.
That's not hard to do. Just jump in at any moment.
You're right. Rosie just brought down a sandwich made of steer and wench meat and some other stuff. Very good.
It's like maybe an imitation bread.
It looks
The
interesting.
way it was wrapped up, I thought it was a burrito. Unborn, but a burrito.
It was wrapped in paper, yes. Anyway, the whole nation is talking these days, of course, about Jimmy the Greek.
Here we go again.
No, I mean, at least these things can be discussed. Bill Cosby, they told me earlier today, Jack, said that he thought it was an overreaction on the network's part to fire the man so quickly. He should have been spoken to, and he did offend a lot of people.
It was absolute panic, yeah.
But the question we were kicking around in an earlier hour on some of our stations was that the question is, was everything Jimmy said in this context objectionable or only certain aspects of it? And the general consensus seems to be only certain things he said, not everything.
Well, how was that? That was your consensus.
Well, no, okay, now, do you believe that it was wrong for him to compliment America's black athletes by saying they are, by and large, superior to white athletes?
But
why is that a bad rap?
Because everything he said was so ignorant sounding that no matter how much you twisted it, it doesn't come out a compliment.
What do you think, Jack?
Will these be the remarks of NBC when I finish? Do I need a disclaimer now?
You may be fired.
Can I release CBS from this? Anyone? I don't know. All they showed you, last night I saw a ball player, a Ram line, one of the greats, Gary Jeter, who I no more figured from the hulk and look of the man to be this specific, not this good at explaining it. You know, he was marvelous.
And he's white or black?
Black.
Right.
He went right to the point, and it's exactly what he said. They never gave the man a chance. They didn't give him a chance to finish, to conclude. First of all, they caught him in a bar or somewhere sitting with guys. He's leaning over. He looked up and he said, and laughingly he said, hell, there'll be nothing left for the white guys, you know. Now, he didn't say that derogatorily. He just, it was the truth. It was an actual fact. But by saying that, he meant that, so look at the great amount of black athletes there are in football. You know, almost 8/9 of the team.
And since they do tend to draw coaches from people who originally played the game,
that's what I was
maybe
thinking.
20 years from now.
Yeah, so the easiest line of resistance, guy was third coach here, and they all happen to be white because they've been doing that for years. You got to say, even the two coaches of yesterday's games, Bo Schembechler and the other guy, were all assistants, third assistants in little college. So they graduate up. You graduate up to coaching jobs.
But my point is, maybe 20 years into the future, by which time maybe 84% of players will be black. At that point, I'll bet you do see a lot of black coaches. And hooray for that. All it should only be on talent.
Yesterday, the leading quarterback, Doug Williams, is a Negro.
Yeah.
And he's sensational. He was on the air last night, too, talking about it, too, you know.
That reminds me of a line I did once.
And the Rams tried a Negro quarterback. He didn't work out. Well, nobody screamed and yelled then. Nobody picketed NADCP, never picketed the Rams.
Yeah.
But they're going to picket the Dodgers now. And Steve Brenner, on the Dodgers, who was there 19 years, was fired a couple of weeks ago and replaced by a black. So why are they saying the Dodgers aren't making moves? It looks like they are.
Yeah. Well, people argue about the pace of change, not necessarily whether it's
But I think what your buddy was saying was a little. When he went into the record and archaeology of construction of thighs and legs, breeding in barns, that was ridiculous. You know, that was some wives' tale he heard, like, you know, the same as.
I don't know whether it is. I once discussed it. James Baldwin, one of the great black literary artists of the century, and some other friends were at the house about 3 or 4 years ago. We were talking over a number of things, and this question came up. And
something else just came up too.
Listen. Do you know what you want to hear the sum and substance of the whole thing?
What's that?
And Roxanne, my wife, said it yesterday. As soon as it was over, and we heard this whole thing. The black being talking to God. God, why are my legs so long and strong, and why do I run so fast? To protect you in the jungle and keep you ahead of the wild animal. And why is my skin black and dark? To save you and camouflage you in the jungle and save you from the beast.
Sun doesn't hurt
and
you.
Why is my hair all curly and wiry? He says, so you'll camouflage in with the foliage in the jungle and keep you safe when running away from the beast and protect you. And the guy says, so what am I doing in Cleveland?
Right.
Now, it's the same exact thing, you know?
Yes. And that joke was, when I heard it, was told by a black comedian.
Yes, a long time ago. Yeah, I heard it. Yeah. So I don't know about the resultant, but I think the man, and you saw him last night sitting with Jesse Jackson. I don't know if Jesse pardoned him, excused him, but it was so funny to see Nick the Greek sitting there, Jimmy the Greek, with worry beads. He was playing with the Greek beads. You know.
Really, literally.
Yeah, he had the beads in his hand like he was in deep prayer or meditation.
You don't mean rosary beads?
Rosary beads.
Oh, they were.
Yeah, rosary. But I was thinking Greek beads because.
I see. Well, Jimmy's worried this morning, I guess.
I think so.
We'll be right back, right, Mark?
Well, in just a moment. I think we'll be right back.
What is wrong? You're so very sensitive on this issue, Mark.
No, not at all. We'll be back in just a moment with more of the Steve Allen Show on the NBC Radio Network. You're listening to the Steve Allen Show. Jack Carter is our guest this hour, and once again, here's Steve Allen.
All righty.
With his mouth full again.
Just got in under the wire. What I'm doing with wire in my mouth, I have no idea, but it worked out all right.
Well, now this meal is lunch. What was the meal 20 minutes ago?
Was there a meal 20 minutes ago?
It's a long bling sandwich.
I don't even remember. No, I don't believe there was.
And I love the way you feed your guests, too. I'm just sitting here watching you slobber and slime and slip.
Well, at least you've been offered something. Of course, I eat rotten food, so everybody turns it down. No, I'll eat anything. I'm known, seriously, at our house, I'm known as the human garbage disposal. Whatever's left on Jane's plate, I got that, too.
Yeah, that's my life.
You do that?
I do it in restaurants. I take other people's food home.
Strangers.
I go to other tables. You're not going to eat that, are you? Can I have that latke? Thank you. Would you mind wrapping up that bagel?
That reminds me of a true story, not a funny one, a sad story. In fact, a young lady, when she was first in New York, this goes back to about 1950 or so, she eventually did well in the business, but she didn't have much money. She only had her own talent and charm and attractiveness. And luckily for her, many an evening she was taken to one lovely restaurant or another by some gentleman in the bucks.
Yeah.
And she did that thing of pretending she had a dog, so she would order the biggest steak in the house and then eat a little bit of it and say, may I just take this home, wrap it up for me? They'd always say, certainly. So in this particular instance, things were very tough, and she hadn't had a good meal in about a week. So she did this trick again, and the maitre d' took special pity on her, and he said, certainly, madame. And when she got home the next day, first she put the thing in the icebox, the next day she took it out, and not only was there the remains of her steak, but steaks from 4 or 5 other people's plates. She didn't know which she could... which was from her, so she had to throw it all away. She had no dog. Sad little story.
A likely story that she threw it away. She made the greatest meatloaf in the world.
Probably. What do you have back there in the way of news for us today, Mark?
This is a great new invention. They're always trying to catch people at going through red lights, and you can't put a cop at every red light.
Oh, my gosh.
So somebody's invented a camera that actually fits into the traffic light, and there's a sensor. If you run through the red light, it'll photograph your license plate. And the first,
like I didn't have enough tickets now, right?
Do we want law and order or don't we? I'll bet if you did that and let everybody know they, are running that risk, you'd see fewer people going through lights.
Well, the first one was installed yesterday in New York at 3rd Avenue and 86th Street.
Then I'll bet at that particular corner there'll be less of that crime.
I know, but now you have your picture taken. If you go through a red light, you have to comb your hair and make sure your
So you have to wear a little makeup and close your collar button. That's all right.
It goes with the gridlock machine.
And the stick lock machine.
You can't drive anymore. Just sit home and pray.
We'll be back in just a moment. We'll continue with that and other stories on the Steve Allen Show.
All right.
On the NBC Radio Network.
Hi, this is Steve Allen. We hope you're enjoying the show on the NBC Radio Network, and we invite you to tune in at this time every day.
You're listening to the Steve Allen Show. Jack Carter's with us this hour. Herb Sargent is here. This is Mark Simone. And here again is Steve Allen.
Yes, for those of you who might be 12 years old and just joining us on new stations around the country, Jack Carter, one of America's funniest comedians for a good many years. In fact, a television pioneer. Jack, you were mentioning to me earlier before we got on the air a little while back about how many years did you do your comedy show at NBC starting in the late 40s?
NBC was in the 50s.
In the 50s.
Yeah, late 40s. I did a show called ABC Minstrels.
Oh, ABC. Okay.
Yeah, no, that was 2 years. Uh-huh. Then I did the Cavalcade of Stars. That was on the Dumont Network. Mm-hmm. That's the show I turned over to Jackie Gleason.
I see.
And Gleason stayed there 19 years.
Yes.
With the same writers and all.
Now
Then I went to NBC and did the Saturday Night Review, which was I was the first hour, and the second hour was Sid Caesar.
I'll be darned.
So that was 50, 51, and 52. 3 years of that.
50 up through 53. Yeah. I'm just making notes of this in connection with something I'm writing these days. Now, you mentioned the show titled ABC Minstrels.
Yeah.
The word minstrels was something that was very popular in the last century and up to about 1945 or so. And then after World War II, you never heard much about minstrel anymore.
Well, minstrels on radio were Pick and Pat Paget and Malone and Pat Malone and Pat Paget that did it on the Minstrel Show with
It
Captain Andy and the
It
Showboat.
largely became a matter of white folks pretending to be
black folks, yeah, and wear blackface.
Yeah, and Al Jolson and Eddie Cantor used to do that. At one time, even America's blacks apparently did not object to it, but then later as sensitivities developed.
Yeah, because when I started the Minstrel Show, we used some blackface side men,
On this ABC show.
and then it disappeared because right about then it became offensive because that's when Amos and Andy were just coming on television, and they were actual black actors, Tim Moore and all. That was the funniest show that ever was.
Yeah, very funny show.
When he did the Kingfish and said, Ruby, I'm an attorney, and I'm going to handle your case. He was the funniest man that ever lived.
It's interesting. He was, in a sense, doing the original Amos and Andy, who were white guys, Godston and Carell, who had created those characters. So it was fascinating, sort of a double layer
Isn't
of
that funny? The reverse.
A black guy doing a white guy doing a black guy.
And they barred the black man from doing the black humor.
Yeah.
Whereas for years it was all right for the white guys who created it to do it.
Yeah. Well, of course.
Yeah, well, just a moment now, Andrew. You're going to tell me that the cab company is bankrupt, and that was... They did it very, very softly,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Calhoun, the lawyer. I did, and they all did all the voices. They did all of them. Sure. But no one was as funny as Tim Moore. And we did the Minstrel Show, and the band was Abe Osserman, which later became Glenn Osser, big band.
Oh, yes. Who was
Vic Damone was one of my singers, and Tony Arden were the two singers.
Good singers.
Which later you
had good taste.
Like you had Steve and Edie starting with you, and I was with Maury Amsterdam and Gloom Dodgers. We did that.
That's right. When was that show on now?
That was in the early 40s.
Early 40s?
Late 40s, because I was in the Army, and I used to come in on furlough and do the show.
And that was radio or TV?
That was radio.
Mm-hmm.
TV started in 47. I did the Minstrel Show. I got out of the Army in 46, 47 and 8, and then I started the Cavalcade of Stars in 49 and 50, and then went to NBC.
You mentioned the funny black comedian Tim. I'm trying to think of the name of the marvelous vaudeville comedian, black. Its name is about as well known as Bob Hope or Coca-Cola.
Moran and Mac?
No. This guy did vaudeville, and he did the... Richard?
Open the Door, Richard.
Open the Door, Richard.
Yeah.
He would walk on stage with a ladder and pretend to be drunk.
Yeah, and that funny, yeah. It was.
And he'd climb up as if he was climbing up some
open
outside.
The door, Richard. Open the door. You want to open that door?
Yeah. And then he'd look out the audience and he'd say, "That's the boy I room with."
Yeah.
Remember that?
I can't remember now.
Wonderful comedian. We'll probably get some phone calls telling us that.
Isn't that weird to have known something that great?
Yes.
And to forget it.
And I feel really dumb because, like yourself,
he was black though. He was. What was his name?
Well, some phone caller will undoubtedly enlighten us about that, so we don't have.
Unless we call Maury.
Well, we have to take a break anyway. We can take some calls when we come back.
All right.
In fact, we'll get to Ask Dr. Allen. If you have a question or a comment or a problem you want to talk about, the number is 1-800-635-LIVE. You can call us toll-free from anywhere in the country.
Whatever we can help you with.
1-800-635-LIVE. We'll continue in a moment with The Steve Allen Show on the NBC Radio Network.
Howdy, this is Steve Allen. We invite you to call us on our toll-free number. That's 800-635-5483.
It's time now, ladies and gentlemen, for Ask Dr. Allen. Your chance to call in with a question of any kind. The number is 1-800-635-LIVE. 1-800-635-LIVE. Are you ready for our first caller?
Yes, I am, and I also just recalled the name of the wonderful black comedian whose name escaped my recollection a moment ago. It was Dusty Fletcher.
Yeah, that was it.
Great entertainer.
All right, well, the number is 1-800-635-LIVE. You're on the Steve Allen Show. Are you there?
I am here.
Stay there, sir. We'll be right over.
What is your question?
My question is, what does RKO in RKO Pictures stand for?
It stands for Radio Keith Orpheum.
Keith what?
Radio Keith, Keith, Orpheum.
Okay.
There was a
name
tender
of the theater chain.
A tender offer and a hostile takeover, and 3 different groups got together.
Yeah.
And ended up being Desilu.
Desilu is Desi and Lucy.
Right.
Well, it didn't end up being Desilu. They bought the old RKO studios. Desi and Lucy.
True.
Right.
And where are you calling from?
Little Rock.
What does that mean?
That's from Irving Little and Charlie Rock.
in Arkansas.
Or Arkansas.
Pronounced saw.
Thanks for calling. You're on the Steve Allen Show.
Yeah, hello.
How are you?
Yes, great, Dr. Allen. I have a question for you. It's not the funniest in the world, but I want to know why the drivers on the road today are so nasty and arrogant, especially if they drive small foreign cars. And if you want to try to drive in an average manner in a regular car, they go nuts.
Nevertheless, you must adhere to your principles. I think the problem we're talking about is not one... Oh, I'm suddenly hearing an echo, which is lovely, because I like my work, and it's always nice to hear it again, even if it's 2 seconds later. Anyway, I think there is a problem with anger in America. Now, people, the American people as a class, barring some happy exceptions, are angrier than I have ever known them to be.
And nastier. But where are they in a rush to?
My house.
They're all
I'm
going,
having such a big party.
they're all going over to Jack's because that's where the real laughs are. Jack Carter.
Thanks for calling. You're on the Steve Allen Show.
Hello, Steve.
Yes.
I'm Dave. I'm calling from Bangor, Pennsylvania. Right?
Bangor, Pennsylvania. All right, sir. Used
First
to be
of
an
all,
old joke about that, which we'll skip.
What did you want to ask?
That was in Maine.
To,
Maine,
say I
right.
enjoy your show, but
Did you have a question?
yeah, I do.
Well, all right. We'll let you think of it. You're on the Steve Allen Show.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, would Dr. Allen know where the expression bought the farm comes from?
It came out of the field of jazz music. I'm dealing with this in a straightforward manner, although I have to be slouched in my seat. Came out of jazz, I would think, about 15 years ago. Now, I don't know the origin. I don't know who originated the phrase. Do you, Jack? When did you first hear it, seriously?
Just a couple of years ago.
That recently?
Well, about 5 years ago. And now it's become he took a cab.
Yeah.
That's the new one.
For those who don't know what we're talking about, it means to die.
Yeah,
so instead of
to buy the
saying
farm.
Bob
Yeah.
died, we say
Well,
Bob.
it started first with he went to the funny farm, and then it
That I never heard. No,
It's
that means to go to
off to the funny farm.
That
yeah.
means to go to a mental hospital.
Yeah, but to buy the farm, well, it started with retiring, and then retiring went to passing away.
I
know.
see. I
The
remember.
old couple, they bought the farm. Yeah.
I remember the first time I heard it. I did about 30 seconds of Abbott and Costello with the guy that gave me this information.
Yeah.
I won't mention the name. I'll just say Charlie Jones, so we don't get into personalities. It was at a big band jazz concert here in Hollywood, and one of the backstage people said, "Have you just heard that Charlie Jones bought the farm?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, that's nice. So where is it?" You know. And we sounded like Abbott and Costello for a minute because he was telling me that poor Charlie had died, and I didn't understand what I was being told.
Well, thanks for your call.
You're welcome.
You're on the Steve Allen Show.
Yes, I was wondering, on the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer,
Mm-hmm.
how did they get the tiger for the mascot?
The lion. The lion, you mean?
But you're close. It's a large pussycat.
Yeah.
And he can sleep any place he wants.
There was originally a comedian named Leo DeLion, and he used to be able to rap on the top of his head and hum and whistle 3 different tunes at the same time. So naturally, this led to a lot of financial interest in him, and they bought some property in Culver City from a man named Tom Brown. You probably remember the old novel and movie Tom Brown of Culver. So if you're following me and making notes, you're really wasting your time.
This is the strangest bunch of questions. Why is it RKO? How did the
Louis
lion...
B. Mayer liked lions. He was a pussycat.
Actually, it was Howard Dietz.
Howard Dietz?
Who was the...
Yeah, he created the lion.
he created the lion. He was the PR director for MGM.
Yes, and a lyricist with Arthur Schwartz, the
Yes.
composer of many of
Dietz
America's
and
great
Schwartz,
hits.
yeah.
Yes, from the corner of Dietz and
Not
Schwartz.
that Howard Dietz, yeah.
No, it was that Howard
It
Dietz.
was that.
Really?
Howard Dietz.
Yes.
Absolutely.
C.O. Stanley. It used to be corner of Orchard in New York.
Ah.
Well, thanks for... Where are you calling from?
Bronxville, New York.
Bronxville, New York.
Bronzeville, we used to say.
Well, thanks for calling. You're on the Steve Allen Show.
Yes, this is Bob from Fort Lee, New Jersey. And my question is, I was told by a nutritionist
buddy Hackett.
a while ago that vitamin C, unless freshly squeezed, has no vitamin... orange juice, unless freshly squeezed, has no vitamin C in it. Is that true?
No, it is not. It's an overstatement which has a germ of truth to it, and you know how dangerous germs are. vitamin C, even if it's a week old, orange juice, even if it's a week old, I'm struck by your problem, it does indeed have vitamin C, but the vitamin content begins to dissipate pretty quickly. So stuff that stuff in your mouth as fast as you can.
So even the orange juice that we buy in a container has vitamin C in it?
Of course, it has a good deal, but not nearly as much as it had Tuesday when they squeezed it.
There goes my suspicions out the window.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, of course, you are not talking to one of the world's foremost medical authorities. You asked me a question, I gave you an answer.
And a great squeezer.
But close.
You have a lot of people calling you doctor, so that's good enough for me.
That's true. A lot of doctors are faking it. I just admit that I am.
Don't you love that commercial? I'm not a doctor, but I play a doctor in the movies. So what are you saying I'm not a doctor for? Yeah. Who cares?
So why should you believe me?
Yeah. The number is 1-800-635-LIVE. 1-800-635-LIVE. That's a great new concept in commercials, though.
Yes.
You could do that for a product. It's not really medicine, but it looks like it.
It's a placebo.
Placebo.
You're on the Steve Allen Show. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
And where are you calling from?
Calling from Columbia, South Carolina.
Nice to hear from you folks down that way.
And what is your question?
Well, I want to address the question that was asked about bought the farm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Steve answered it. He went back 15 years, but you can go back a lot further than that to World War I.
No kidding.
And back about that time, when people were working in the factories and so on, their big ambition was to retire and go back to the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd buy a farm and retire.
True.
And that's where the expression came from. He finally bought the farm, which means instead of retiring, he died.
I'm sorry, what was the last thing you said?
It means that he died, a permanent retirement.
No, I understand that. But the question was, I am familiar with the fact that in my childhood, as you say, I used to hear people say, well, old Uncle Tommy, quit down at GM and he bought a farm and he's living in Libertyville now. That is, the gentleman's quite right. That's an old expression. But I think the original caller wanted to know at what point in the development of our popular lingo did it come to mean he died?
Well, I'm 66 years old. I was born in 1922, and I've been hearing that all my life. My father used to say it. It came in right after World War I, as I understand it.
In other words, when you've heard it in the old days, it meant then that they died too?
Yeah, the expression was, well, he finally bought the farm, which means instead of buying and retiring, he died.
Yeah,
that was what it meant.
Well, that's very valuable information, sir. Then that takes it way back over 60 years ago, and we thank you for that important. I hope we have some lexicographers listening. You've just taught. No, I'm serious. You've taught us something.
Thanks for calling. You're on the Steve Allen Show.
Okay, good.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Yes,
Oh,
I am.
pretty territory.
And how's the weather there right now?
It's snowing, and snowing some more. Snowing up and down.
Yes, going to keep that up for a while. The big storm which washed away Southern California the last 2 days is in your neighborhood now, I understand.
That's exactly correct. We've got...
And what's your question?
Well, it's a statement that bought the farm came out of the Army Air Corps in the First World Wars when a flyer would be shot down. He has bought the farm.
Ah, so they used it in that particular application too. Most interesting. Well, I hope, as I say, people who specialize in the origins of slang phrases are listening now.
Did you know about break a leg, Steve, where it came from?
I never have known that. Now
Betty Davis explained it the other night on the Carson show.
Really? What was the explanation?
She said, don't whistle in my dressing room, she said. That's old. It's a terrible thing to do.
Yes.
Like break a leg, he said, Johnny, that came from the ballet. The ballet people would say, for God's sakes, don't break a leg.
Don't break a leg.
Yeah, so to reverse it, they started to say break a leg.
I see.
And that's where that came from, the showbiz expression, break a leg, which means good luck.
It's interesting. I have just reached for this book, The Dictionary of Clichés, which Herb Sargent brought in quite a few weeks ago by James Rogers. And we do not find break a leg here. So apparently even this researcher was unable to authenticate that. He has break the ice, breathes his last, and so forth, but nothing on break a leg.
Yeah, that's famous showbiz.
Right.
There's an old mob expression, break both legs. Doesn't mean good luck.
No, we had a neighbor used to yell, break a leg and come down here.
Do you remember an expression, Jack, meaning get out of the way. It was one side or a leg off. Did you ever hear that?
No, one side or a leg off.
That was big in Chicago in the early 1930s. Just neighborhood street talk. Hey, you guys, one side or a leg off. Did you ever hear that in the East, guys?
No.
Maybe it was just a Chicagoism then.
I think so. Yeah.
Have you ever heard he bought the leg? Which is an
broke
old,
the leg.
It's an old farming dancer's
peg leg
expression,
base.
right.
Who else do we have there, Mark?
Well, the number is 1-800-635-LIVE. 1-800-635-LIVE. By the way, we never got to the end of the story about the traffic light with the camera in it.
Oh, yes. What were the further details?
They're experimenting with this in New York. Now, what happens is you run through a red light. It sets off a camera, which takes a photograph of your rear license plate. And so far, they've come up with a number of pictures already.
Mm-hmm.
But they tried this out in New York on a corner. However, most of the pictures are not of cars. They're of bicycle messengers. They're of pretzel carts. Apparently, anything that goes through the light while it's red sets off the sensor.
Oh, I see. Fascinating.
Yeah, there's one system now where they mail you the ticket, too.
Really?
You're mailed a ticket in the mail, yeah.
You're mailed a ticket?
You're mailed a ticket following that, yeah.
In what city is that, Jack?
I just heard it on the air. But I don't know where, but...
you believe things you hear on the air?
But I'll get it, because I'm the king of tickets.
But how many have you gotten?
I have 6 in 1 month.
Really? 1 month?
I lived in California now since 1970, and I had maybe 1 in that entire time. I have nothing on my record. In the last month, they are out there looking for me. They are waiting in trees. They are hiding in alleys. I can't make a right move. 6 moving violations.
Has it ever occurred to you you may be falling apart and really driving that?
No, because you start driving bad when you look around and know they're all over the place.
Yes.
Yeah, now I look in my rearview mirror and expect red and blue to be following me. You know, reds and blues.
Yes.
It's like a stage design. Reds and blues on Carter. Bring him in.
Did you ever notice that when you see one of those cars behind you, even if you have done nothing wrong, you feel guilty?
Yeah, well, I felt guilty the other day. One got behind me. He kept following me, and finally he put the red and blue on, as though to say, we know you're guilty. And this guy pulled me over in Beverly Hills. I cannot believe that I talked him out of it.
You really? What did he say you had done?
I never let him say. He says, wait a minute, give me a break. He says, now look, you never let me tell you what you did. Well, but whatever I did, I couldn't have. He says, you won't even give me a license. You won't even give me a registration. Give me a break. I'm a cop. Let me work. Let me do my job first. Then try to talk your way out of it.
That's funny.
He was cute, this guy. He says, look, I've had a bad day, he said to me. I just came to a funeral. It was the day that all the cops went to bury that police officer that was murdered, you know?
Oh, yes.
So they had a parade of 2,500 motorcycles.
My goodness.
They did it, and he'd been to that, and then the thing after and all. He said, and you went through you weren't supposed to make a left. It's up overhead from 3 to 7. I said, I live here. I've done that. And look, I